Hello friends, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about something we have never talked about before, and that is Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and how they actually reflect the end times society mindset or character behavior of the end times society. So they're actually a really good example of that and leaders in that, I would say. So the description of the behavioral traits of the end times person is described in 2 Timothy 3:1-5. And there's others in the Bible. There's other examples, but we're just going to look at this one really quick. In the last days, there will come times of difficulty. People will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power. Avoid such people. Okay, that was a mouthful, but it really gives you an overall description of the behaviors of the end times society. All of these traits that I've read to you are easily recognizable, but we need to remember that this is as a whole. And some of these traits are actually not as easy to recognize. We kind of gloss over them. We kind of focus more on the obvious: pride, arrogance, lovers of money. I'm not saying that all of these examples describe Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in particular, but I think a lot of them do. I'm not going to go through all of these, but because we have a lot to talk about today. But lovers of self, lovers of money, those are pretty obvious. Those are easy to see. And like I said, it's not just them that I'm talking about, but they are good examples. They're leaders in and widely recognized. Millions follow their example. And they are a perfect example of the end times person. Very self-focused. I could go into so many different stories of things that have came out in Prince Harry's book and in interviews, kind of going back and forth. They're saying that they didn't call the royal family racist, but we can all look at the interview and it was greatly implied. Harry saying, well, did I or Meghan say the royal family is racist? No, not in those words. They didn't, but they implied it. And they, even like during the Oprah interview, Oprah went on and on. What? Nobody stopped her. They knew what impression she had. They knew it was about the skin color. They knew that Oprah was thinking racist. They knew that. They didn't stop her. For 2 years, it's gone on. They've accepted awards for it. So in defense, but that is gaslighting. That's a head game. Whether they want to admit it or not, that's a head game. And, saying something and then kind of trying to take it back and say, well, I didn't say that exactly. Well, you implied it, and you implied it. That's the mindset. That's kind of how society is today. Proud, arrogant, abusive. The word abusive, we all know what abusive means. And when we think of the word, we automatically think of physical, maybe emotional abuse. But it actually, when you look up the word, it also includes extremely offensive and insulting. So, people are telling their truth and, their story, and they're having no regard for how it is affecting other people. And another good example of that is in Harry's book, he named a woman that he found in school or somewhere, that he found ugly and greasy. And how must that woman feel? She was named. You know what I mean? He gave no regard for how she might feel. No, and there's lots of situations where they're not giving names, but you know who they're talking about. And it's insulting. It's belittling, it's offensive. And that is the definition for abusive. So, you know, and it's all to get what they want. They're telling their story. And honestly, the Bible says to listen to both sides of a story before coming to a conclusion. We haven't heard the other side. We have not heard one word from the other side, and I don't think we will. Although I think that it would be wise if King Charles or Prince William was to sit down in an interview, just like Prince Charles at that time did when Princess Diana came out with her interview. He did do a kind of a rebuttal type, let's clear this up type interview. And I think that that's what needs to happen here. I don't know if it will, but I think that something needs to be said, because, you know, after raising a child with reactive attachment disorder, and I've talked about that with you guys before. I do have another channel. I haven't actually done anything on the channel for a couple years, but I do still have a lot of RAD parents. RAD stands for reactive attachment disorder. I still have a lot of you contact me and ask for advice and what to do and how to recognize these things. When your child is diagnosed with that, you're trained by specialists, psychiatrists, psychologists, family therapy, and coaching, parenting coaching. And for years, you're trained how to recognize it, how to see micro expressions and facial detection, how to read the body language, how to recognize gaslighting, and how to handle it, what to say, how to react. Because with these type of disorders, which is childhood trauma, and that's what causes reactive attachment disorders, childhood trauma, usually between birth and 3 years old. But, you know, if there was a parent was absent a lot, or there was a lot of daycare or nannies or babysitters, or, you know, that type, and there wasn't an attachment fully formed, and to be technical, there's multiple different types of attachment. Most people have a healthy attachment, but there's fragmented types of attachment too. So, and that's kind of what I'm seeing. Like I said, I have been trained by specialists for years how to recognize these things. And that's kind of what I'm seeing. Definitely not giving a diagnosis. I can't give a diagnosis. I'm not a doctor. But I do recognize these things. And usually in these type of situations, they're just going to keep going until they get what they want. They are trying to get a reaction and they're not getting one. So they're just going to keep pushing further and further and further. People with attachment issues or childhood trauma often do not recognize a set goalpost and stopping at that goalpost. They move it. They continue to move it. It's never set. And it's always on their terms. And that's how they feel in control. That's how they stay in control, is by constantly moving the goalpost. So I feel like that's what's happening. You know, who am I to say? It's just an estimated guess, I guess. Disobedient to parents was on the list, and both of them are adults. That particular behavior does not apply to adults. That is telling us, though, that in the end times, we will see these things in children and teenagers as well. So, or those still living under the roof of their parents, which, if you've ever listened to David Wilkerson's End Times Visions, and that was back in 1973, 50 years ago, and it is happening today. So I would definitely suggest listening. You know, let's just listen to a little clip of it just real quick.
Piece of trash. It means sex education classes in school will be using animated cartoons and filmed dramatized sexual intercourse in the home. I see the new #1 youth problem in America and the world as hatred toward parents. Now, I'm reading this tonight for fear I change a single word of what I've seen and had to write down as the Holy Spirit laid on my heart. A man's worst enemies will be they of his own household, the Bible says. Children are going to turn against their parents with a passion. Parents are going to be betrayed and will die 1,000 deaths at the hands of children who've learned to despise their hypocrisy.
Like I said, I would suggest going and listening to all of this, but today's society is so self-focused, and they are a really good example of that. Who remembers when Prince Harry said, if you're not happy in a job, quit? Let's look at this clip of this young adult.
Scheduled for 8.5 hours, both Saturday and Sunday. I'm like 3.5 hours into my shift. There's so many customers, and we have 4 people on the floor all day. And then people are yelling at me because they don't have their orders ready, and they don't know what to do. I can't do it. And a customer was misgendering me today, like really badly. I didn't have their order.
Okay, we're not going to listen to the whole thing because I just want you to get an idea. You can Google that and watch the whole thing if you want. But I just wanted to give you an idea of kind of the mindset of the generation that's coming up. A lot of them still live at home. David Wilkerson talks about this in his vision. They're very entitled. They want what they want, and they're very open with their hate and entitlement. Heartless, ungrateful, unappeasable. The word unappeasable actually means relentless. Somebody who has felt wronged in their, whether it be real or perceived, and they're vindictive about getting revenge, and they are relentless. And we can definitely see that. There's been how many interviews, and then a book, and now Megan's coming out with a book. It's relentless and it's vindictive. It's not for anything good. I do think that Prince Harry is trying to say, you know, I'm not trying to hurt my family by saying, yeah, he is. You know, actions speak louder than words. That actually is something that you will also see, and is a symptom in a person with childhood trauma. Their actions don't match their words. They know the right thing to say, so they say it because they want to be perceived well. But their actions say something completely different. And his actions say, I am vindictive, I want revenge, I want my way, and if you don't give me my way, I'm gonna tattle. And, you know, that kind of goes back to that whole child mindset. Something that I noticed with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is they really remind me of Jezebel and Ahab in the Bible. And some people might take offense to that. That's fine. I definitely want to hear your comments. You know, let me know your thoughts on all of this. Ahab was a very childlike, whiny, complainy husband. And he complained to Jezebel, his wife, who was a very strong-minded, I would say if they lived in today's society, she would definitely call herself a feminist, because she was the one who was taking control. She was the one who was in charge and kind of mothering to Ahab. He would whine and complain to her, I want this vineyard, and so won't sell me their vineyard, and they won't give it to me, and I really want it. And he, you know, off sulking somewhere. Well, Jezebel, who was a stronger mind, smarter, stronger, she took it upon herself to write letters and sign Ahab's name as if it was him. And just how many people have suspected that Meghan has been behind a lot of the book writings and a lot of the things that have been said, even given to the press. So a lot of people have said that, that doesn't sound like something that a British person would say. That sounds like something that Meghan would say. She's very flowery with her words. And I actually had watched a video, let me see, who was it? The Body Language Arts, I think was the channel. And they are really good. It's 4 guys really breaking down the body language of both Meghan and Harry. And they have talked about that too. Something that I did learn from that is Meghan, a lot of people think she's fake. And I have to admit that when I hear her speak about things or cry, maybe because I've been trained by psychiatrists and psychologists and specialists to recognize those type of things. Maybe it's maybe that's why I'm seeing fake when she's crying or something. I mean, I've witnessed that countless times, raising a child with that disorder. And I'm not saying Meghan has that disorder. I'm just saying it reminds me of it. They kind of broke it down and why people think that about her. And it's because she speaks as if she's speaking to children. She's speaking down to people, basically. And, adults talk to each other how I'm speaking to you now. But if I was talking to children, I would really elaborate and lots of facial expressions. And my voice would go high and then it would go really whispery. And I would, and that is how Meghan speaks. So if there's just something you're not liking about her, that's probably what it is. And I learned that from that channel. But I think that is appealing to Harry, that child in him, that emotional child in him. Yeah, Jezabel took it upon herself, and she was leading and was called a prophetess, a spiritual leader, and many people followed her. Meghan is a huge promoter of yoga. So if you've ever looked at the poses of the yoga poses, are actually worshiping these Hindu gods. And if you look it up, the yogis and the instructors, they'll all tell you that that's what these poses are. It is worship. And, a lot of Christians, or just a lot of people in general, have taken yoga as exercise. And that might be your argument. Well, I just do it for exercise. I know that they do it for worship, but I'm not worshiping. I'm just doing it for exercise. Well, it's kind of like Prince Harry wearing the Nazi uniform, which, by the way, he blamed Prince William and Princess Catherine for choosing that uniform and then laughing at him. But, it was kind of never really pointed out. I noticed he said that there was a pilot uniform and a Nazi uniform that he chose and presented to them which one. So he chose that. They're kind of not pointing that out. They're not emphasizing that. He's trying to emphasize how they are the ones who told me to wear it. And, it's kind of that Ahab type whiny, complainy. It's somebody else's fault. Like I said, it's like Prince Harry wearing the Nazi uniform. It doesn't matter if he is in agreement with the Nazis. It doesn't matter if he recognizes himself as a Nazi. That doesn't matter. He put on the uniform, and that's what he's presenting himself. Do you see what I'm saying? Prince Harry had said when they first got married, I think it was in the first year of their marriage, they went to visit his mother's grave.
Palms flat against the stone of his mother Princess Diana's grave and asked for guidance. According to reports, he shared details of the private moment in his new memoir Spare, with bombshell revelations having been leaked after the book accidentally went on sale early in Spain. The Duke of Sussex says Meghan kneeled next to the princess's grave when the pair had only been together for around a year.
And she told him that she was asking for advice or guidance from Princess Diana. When I heard that, my first thought was, she's a witch. Why did I think that? Because I came out of witchcraft, and that's what witches do. They either lay on the grave or put their hands on the grave to pull the energy from that person, their essence, their strengths, their leadership abilities, their power. It's kind of hard to explain, but witches do that. So that was my first thought was, oh, she's a witch. And then it kind of made me look at her jewelry. Have you ever looked at her jewelry? I came out of witchcraft, so I do look at jewelry, and I cannot stand seeing a Christian wearing witch jewelry. And yes, there is such a thing. Anything with a crescent moon on it is considered sacred, and the divine goddess is what it represents. Anything with the crescent moon or the full moon, and there's different names for the goddess, and then there's also the Trinity, the triple goddess. So the moon symbolizes that. And some of the names that you actually might recognize is Hecate, Luna, Diana. And yes, that is the same Diana that was worshipped in the Bible. So that's something to think about. But a lot of Meghan's jewelry really kind of would tell me, because that is how a witch would recognize another witch, is by her jewelry. So that is why I hate seeing Christians wearing that kind of stuff. Just on that note, really quick, I think a lot of times Christians don't recognize, because they didn't come out of witchcraft, so they wouldn't know those things. But burning sage is not Christian. That is a witchcraft practice to remove the evil from your home, bad energy. So Christians should not burn sage. It's putting on the Nazi uniform. And Christians should also not say love and light. I know it sounds like a nice thing. It sounds like a Christian thing, because God is love and God is light. But the devil is an angel of light, right? He portrays himself to be an angel of light. That is what that is. It is actually kind of like a protection spell. So unless you're purposely trying to cast a spell, stop saying love and light, because it's not Christian. It's Wiccan. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. Because I came out of that, that is my enemy. It's God's enemy. And if it's God's enemy, it's my enemy. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So let's look at her jewelry. She did have a couple of different pieces with the crescent moon. And the crescent moon is sacred, very sacred. And actually, it represents the divine feminine goddess. It symbolizes feminine power and intuition, psychic visions, and different phases of the moon. So it's not just a crescent moon that you might see in witch jewelry in facing any direction, but also maybe with a star next to it, which is also an Islam image, but it is also a witchcraft image, a witch symbol. And it even like a full moon with a crescent moon on the side, or on both sides, a full moon with a crescent moon on each side facing in or facing out. She had a couple different kinds of jewelry with snakes on it. And that actually represents the witch herself, being a witch, and the magical powers of that. The 7-leaf clover, it's a protection, lucky protection. The hands of the goddess, Hamza, the hands of the goddess, and it's for protection. The eye of Horus, which is also protection from the evil eye or curses. And it also signifies royal power. So a signet ring is for protection, and in history worn only by royals. So Meghan having a signet ring or getting one after becoming a royal is kind of telling that she was really into being a royal. She's not into the royals, but her royalty, you know. The Durga is a form of the goddess, and it's the Hindu goddess. And remember, she practices yoga. So this is one of the goddesses that's worshipped in yoga. So that goddess is also known as Shakti. Swallows, that actually is a symbol for the goddess Diana, believe it or not, and it also represents the souls of the dead and the spirit world. The fallen star, she actually has earrings that is named fallen star, and we know what that means. It represents fallen angels. Item protection from the evil eye. The woman power symbol is the helm of awe, and it represents the power of the goddess and protection, and the ultimate feminist. And I don't think people really recognize what it is when they're seeing those things, but that's what it is. And she also has a couple of astrological signs in her jewelry too. So, which Christians should not follow. Christians should not follow that. How many of you have heard of John Amaral? This Prince Harry actually mentioned him and has praised him as his chiropractor and spiritual healer. So if you don't know what that is, let's just take a look at this clip.
And there's always a huge dissipation of energy and a feeling of relief, release, freedom. Expression of emotion may happen when the system moves, when energy that was stored or bound up in the muscles begins to dissipate. And if we're really free to express and allow energy that's been bound in our bodies to move through, this woman is like
Prince Harry is not only mixed up in these type of things, but also openly talks about going to psychics and mediums and spiritualists, tarot cards. Another person who goes to this, that was Julian Huff, but another person that goes to this spiritual healer is Gwyneth Paltrow. That kind of surprised me. But, you know, like I said, this is the mindset of today's society. And they pay $2,500 for that. I think a lot of people, when they think of the end times person, they kind of view a Charles Manson or a Jeffrey Dahmer type person. But that's not necessarily true. A lot of these people are very likable. They perceive them, or they present themselves as kind and thoughtful, and all of this humanitarian work and organizations to help people. But, you know, if you really kind of look into Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's Archwell Foundation, they really don't donate a lot. It's actually very, very little. So they're really pocketing. They're really making money off of that. This is just a thought. For the end times comes up gradually, and it's built brick by brick to get us to the end times, right? Well, a lot of these bricks have to be taken down to set up for the new world order. So we can see that happening in America. Brick by brick, America is being torn down as the world superpower, but it kind of has to happen to reset everything. You can't reset something without tearing some things down first to rebuild. And that would actually have to happen in England as well. Just like in the Bible, it talks about Pharaoh being born for showing the glory of God. And what that means is he refused to let Moses and the people of God go. And he would say, go ahead and go. And then he would go after them. And he really fought them. And through it all, God's glory was shown through Moses. And, but yeah, it wasn't favorable for Pharaoh, but that's why he was born, to do that. And it had to happen. And I kind of feel like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are kind of in that Pharaoh position right now. They're tearing down the royal family, the monarchy in England. And do I think that it's going to be completely torn down? No, absolutely not. But a lot of their support, a lot of their followers have stopped following them. A lot of their support has pulled away because of all of this drama and lies and stories being told. And whether it's somebody's truth or not doesn't matter. It's still tearing down the reputation of someone else. And that is the definition of slander. And that is in the list in 2 Timothy. Things are having to be torn down to set up for a one world leader to come into play, to come into power. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And like I said, I'm open-minded. I want to hear your thoughts, whether it is in defense of Meghan and Harry, or you agree with what I say, or if you can think of other Bible verses that really kind of go with what we just talked about, leave them in the comments. So anyway, I hope you're all having a great day, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.